This might be one of the most bettable cards of the entire year. I don't think I have ever seen as many -110s, +110s, +100s as we have on tap for this weekend's UFC card. In this video, I'm going to go through the entire fight card, giving you my breakdowns and betting analysis for every single fight on the card. Welcome to the UFC Vegas 115 edition of the lucrative MMA betting show. And this week, we are in good old Las Vegas, Nevada, the home of the UFC, where we have my man, Chris Duncan. Finally, in a main event, the UFC have made the right decision, putting the boy Chris in a main event. He is taking on Renato Moicano. As you can imagine, I have a lot to say about that one. Cannot wait to break that fight down for you. But we don't only have that fight. We have a women's MMA co-main event on tap with Tabatha Ricci taking on Virna Jandiroba. We have, and maybe one of the best fights on the card, Ewing returning from his devastating, huge underdog win against Malcolm Wellmaker. He is facing off against Rafael Estevam, a 14-0 undefeated prospect. So boys, that fight is electric. We got another potential showcase for Abdul Yakhyaev, the guy who seems to not go more than 10 seconds in any of his UFC fights. He is taking on Brendson Ribeiro. We might get another highlight reel in that one, boys. Wait for my breakdown on it. Azamet Bekov, Tresean Gore. We got a couple of banger fights, boys, so I cannot wait to get into every single one of them with you, as well as every other fight on the card. So without further ado, run the intro, and I'll see you on the other side. So welcome back to another edition of the show, and I am very happy that this edition of the show, we're going to be speaking about a main event that is headlined by none other than Chris Duncan. He should have been here, maybe in his last fight, but, you know, I feel like the timing's perfect, to be honest. I won't even say he should have been in here in his last fight. I feel like the run he's gone on in his last fights have led to this. I think this is the perfect timing. I thought he might be in a main event after that Rebecca War, you know, fight of the night, arguably fight of the year. I was lucky enough to see that live and hang out with him after the fight. It was a great time. And I did say in my interview that I did with him after the fight that, you know, the UFC will put you in a main event soon. It didn't come in the next fight against Terrence McKinney, but it has come now. So I feel like it's divine timing. I think it's perfect timing. I think Chris is getting Renato at a great time as well, because Renato, one of the best fighters in the entire division. And I got to catch myself before I go and break this fight down right now. We need to do the introductions and introduce these guys. You know, I just wanted to start hot. By the way, boys, I have an exclusive interview coming out with this weekend's headliner, Chris Duncan, where we speak about his upcoming fight with Manny Moicano and a bunch of other things. I even asked him the specific bet that us as sports bettors should place this weekend on his fight. So make sure you watch that if you want the answer to that one. It will be out either tomorrow or the next day at the latest on this YouTube channel. Boys, before we get into this week's card, I want to address something properly. So there's been a lot of misinformation out there about my betting record, and I'm not the type to argue with people on the internet. That's not what I do. So instead, I'm just going to show you the cold, hard numbers, because men lie, women lie, but numbers don't. So let's get into it. I'm going to bring up my numbers right now, and we can look at them on the screen together. So I ran my entire betting history through Claude and asked it if I started betting on my service with my betting history with a 10K bankroll back in 2019 when I started, how much would I have now in March 2026? And these are the numbers that have been brought up. So as you can see here, if your starting bankroll was $10,000, your final bankroll as of today, March 2026, would be $221,567.59. So the total profit is $211,567.59. So this is using my full betting history from 2019 until now, with a scaling model where you adjust every 50 units. During that time period, there was 15 scale ups and 4 scale downs. I also run it through Claude, and as you can see on this one, asked it to run me another report to give me the same data, but instead if we was scaling up every 25 units. I'll explain to you what that means in a minute if you don't understand what scaling up is and if you don't understand bankroll management. I'll explain to you in a minute. But if we look at the 25 unit numbers, then the same record produces around $484,000. That's over a 4,700% ROI. So if you join my service when I started with $10,000 on that model, now 6 years later, you would have $484,000. So almost almost $500,000 when you started with $10,000. And the last model I ran it through, the last report I got from Claude, I asked Claude to do the same model, but on a more conservative weekly rebalance model. So where you up and down scale your unit size after every week instead of specific numerical period. And on this model, it's still up over $430,000. And that includes everything. Every loss, every win, the entire picture of every bet I've ever placed on my service. Nothing removed, nothing cherry picked. This is the full history right here. Now, let me explain something a lot of people are getting wrong, because this is where most of the misinformation is coming from. So units are not a fixed sum of money. When the bankroll grows, the unit size grows. When the bankroll drops, the unit size drops. That's how you stay in the game long enough to see your edge play out. That's how you stay in the game when you're losing, as well as maximize winning when you're winning. But here's the bit people are getting specifically wrong. So some people have said, oh, he's lost 84 units. That's mean he's almost wiped out an entire bankroll. That's not how this works. Think of it like this. If you have $10,000 to bet on sports, you don't bet all $10,000 at once, right? You bet in chunks. You bet $100 at a time, let's say. If you end up losing half of that money, you're not going to continue betting $100 at a time because the pot of money you have is a lot less. Now you're going to start betting $50 at a time. So by the time you've lost 84 units across the whole run, you haven't lost 84 times your current bet size. Your unit gets smaller as your bankroll drops. That's the whole point of the bankroll strategy. You cannot blow your whole bankroll on this model with this strategy or any professional sports betting strategy out there. It's literally designed against that. As you lose, your bets get smaller and the losses slow down. That is how you stay in the game long enough to go on your next win streak. And one more thing, because this matters a lot. 99% of tipsters out there have zero third-party tracking record. None. They screenshot what they want, show you what they want, hide everything they don't want you to see, and you just have to take their word for it. Every single bet I place is tracked independently and publicly verifiable. That's very rare in this industry and something I take very seriously and something I pride myself on. So, are we in a drawdown right now? Yes. And I've been transparent about it. But if you zoom out across the entire history of my betting, there has been far more scale ups than scale downs, and far more money won than money lost. Look at these numbers on the screen now. $10,000 investment to over 200 grand. $10,000 investment to over 400 grand. No matter how you scale up and scale down, you are in an exorbitant amount of profit. Now, yes, if you haven't been with me from the start or during any of my uptrends, and unluckily you join at a bad time before a downtrend, that is unfortunate. But I cannot time my uptrends and downtrends. All I can do is profit over the long term. And as you see by the numbers I've just presented, that's exactly what we've done. I'm not guaranteeing anything. There's no guarantees in this game, but I don't need to because the record speaks for itself. So boys, if you're looking for smooth, consistent wins every single week with no losses and no losing runs, then this isn't for you. This is real sports betting. This is the reality of the game. And anyone telling you otherwise is lying. This is the long-term nature of sports betting. This is the reality of the game. And the record speaks for itself. Now that's out of the way, let me get back to doing what I do best, which is breaking down the UFC card. And it is my man, Chris Duncan, in the main event, taking on Renato Moicano. And we have the boy Chris Duncan coming into this fight with a record of 15 wins, 2 losses. Renato Moicano, on the other hand, a record of 20 wins, 7 losses, and 1 draw. Currently, they have Chris Duncan as a minus 185 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Renato Moicano sitting at plus 160. All right, so let's talk about this one, boys. So there's many things that stand out to me initially. You know, the first thing that stands out to me is, damn, both of these guys train at the same gym at ATT. Obviously, Chris is in Scotland, but then he does do a lot of his camp at ATT. The same gym as Moicano, so he knows him. They've trained together. They're going to know each other's styles, which often makes for a weird fight. That's the first thing that stands out to me. But remember, Chris did fight Mateusz Rebecki, who also trains at ATT there. That definitely didn't make for a weird fight. That was an all-out war. I think no matter if those guys were brothers, if they ended up fighting, it would still be an all-out war. It's just how they're both built. But oftentimes we do see when fighters train at the same gym and they've trained together, the fights don't go as we think. They just don't, because maybe a fighter has a wrestling advantage but never wrestles in their fights. But because they wrestled this fighter in the gym and they dominated them via wrestling, now they start wrestling because, well, I know I can wrestle you. I've done it in the gym. Why don't I do it now, even though I'm more of a striker? Those type of scenarios do happen more often than not. So that's the first thing to understand, boys. We may see something a bit strange here. We may see Chris like wrestling Moicano, which you wouldn't think that he would do, because Moicano is very good on the ground, because maybe Chris can take Moicano down easily on the ground and stay safe on top. You know what I mean? It's like we haven't really seen evidence of that on tape, but it doesn't mean that it won't happen, because it may have happened in the training room, if that makes sense. It may be more likely to happen than if he had never wrestled him before. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Something else that stands out to me in this fight is that these fighters are on completely different trajectories, right? So Chris Duncan is obviously on a rocket ship at the moment. He's just winning fight after fight after fight, big performance after big performance, underdog win after underdog win. And obviously now he's lined the favorite like he was in his last fight. A lot of money came in on Terrence McKinney, and it ended up being a pick'em by fight time, actually. But he was a decent-sized favorite for most of the week. Again, he's a big-sized favorite. So the market is starting to respect Chris, whereas before they wouldn't. He was an underdog in basically every single fight, and he just kept winning. So they're like, okay, we have to put him as a favorite now. But that is important to mention. Chris is on an uptrend. And in my opinion, Money Moicano is on a downtrend. Moicano has a podcast now. He's got his own gym as well. I don't think his focus is 100% MMA these days. As we know, he's Money Moicano. His focus is money. He's trying to get money. Respect to him. Why wouldn't you? This is a brutal world. This is a brutal sport. You need to get money, get in, get out, So that's kind of what he's doing. He's on the tail end of his career. I believe he's 36 years old, whereas Chris is 32. That's actually a big difference. It's a big difference, because 32, arguably that's when you're the best fighter you're ever going to be. I would say at 32, you're better than you are at 33. But I'd say at 31, you might not be as good as you are at 32. Like, I might say 32 is the best age for MMA. Now, big caveat here, completely depends. Some fighters peak at 26, 27, 28, and 31, 32, they start to taper off. But in general, I've always said between 28 and 32 is the peak age for MMA, outside of like the heavier weight classes, where I would say it's like 34, 35, for the most part. Not a hard set in stone rule, but for the most part, it depends on how many fights, how many wars you've had, etc., etc. Now, Chris has had his fair share of wars, but I definitely would not put him up there in fight years, because fight years is different than numerical age. Shout out to my man Dan from Half the Battle. Make sure you go and subscribe to his YouTube channel. But yeah, like I said, fight years is not the same as numerical age. So Chris Duncan has had a lot of fights, but I would still say he's about 32 years old, and Moicano I would say is about 36 years old. I think their age is what their fight years are, honestly. Moicano has got a couple more fights and he's going to retire. Like, is he going to be fighting at 39? I don't think so. You know what I mean? He's got a couple more fights and he's going to retire, whereas Chris is gunning for that top 15, top 10. If he wins this fight here, he's in a massive fight next, massive fight. Him versus BSD, could be a fight that happens. And I would love to see that fight. I mean, that's an amazing fight. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. This is a tough fight that he has. And I'm going to go into the stylistics of it now. But I wanted to like paint a picture of the narratives going into this fight. One more narrative, or not even narrative, just one more intangible going into this fight, is that it's actually a fairly short notice fight for Chris. So I don't know exactly how many weeks he's had, but this is a shorter camp. It's not a full training camp. Renato Moicano was supposed to fight Brian Ortega in March. Brian pulled out of that fight. So then they kept him fighting, but they moved him to April. So like 1 month apart. So he just continued his training camp. So he's actually had a long training camp. Whereas Chris only got wind of this fight, let's say about 6-7 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, something like that, right? So it's not a full training camp. I've actually spoke to him about this, and he said that he likes the shorter training camps. He said, I actually like this better because it's easier to peak. I peak sooner. I don't think he'll mind me saying that, but he has told me that, he likes this camp. So I don't think it's going to affect the fight, but it is worth mentioning. Renato's had to stretch his camp out for longer, and Chris has actually had a shorter camp. So it's just something to note there, especially when you're 36. I don't think you want these long training camps. You know what I mean? I don't think you want these long, grueling training camps at 36 years old where it extends. It's tough to peak. You know what I mean? Like, you probably want the shorter training camp. So it's just something worth mentioning. Stylistically, great fight, right? Great fight. So stylistically, I think Moicano will have some edge early because I think he's very fast. He's probably the faster party early, and they have different styles. Moicano has a very good jab, like very fast, good 1-2. I think he's developed his striking over the years, honestly. Like his boxing has improved. He's got very good leg kicks as well, and he can fight on the outside. He's actually a pretty good striker. Moicano is known to be a grappler, and he take you back and he choke you out, and he is good at that. But I think he's a much better striker than when he first came into the UFC, put it that way. Like his improvements have been very impressive to me, to be honest. I do feel like, early he will probably look good on the feet, some good 1-2s. Chris oftentimes takes a while to get into the fight. Against Terence McKinney, obviously it was a bit of a slow start. Against Rebecca was crashing distance early. He looked good there, but, he was still taking punishment early. So I feel Moicano might look good early. Chris is going to be landing his shots, but Moicano might land a couple of 1-2s, some jabs, some leg kicks and stuff like that. I'm very interested to see how the fight progresses after round 1, though, because I think Chris has a massive cardio advantage here. I think he has a durability advantage to some degree. It's tough to say because Moicano, it's not like he's not durable, but I feel like Chris, it's not that Chris has like a crazy durability advantage because he does get hurt, but it's like, it's the will to win. It's the recoverability. It's like the ability to push through. I feel like if Moicano starts getting hurt by Chris, it's going to snowball badly for him and Chris probably ends up finishing him. Whereas if Moicano hurts Chris could easily just come back and win the fight, So it's weird because I don't want to say he's more durable, but I trust him to push through adversity more than Moicano if someone does get hurt, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think he has a big cardio advantage here. I think he has the recoverability advantage, like I said, the will to win advantage, the push through advantage. And I think as the fight gets into round 2 and round 3, I think Chris's game is going to start to open up a lot more. It's just the first half of the fight where I feel like Moicano will do his best work. The wrestling's interesting to me here because one thing I noticed about the Rebecca fight when I watched it live, because I was there live to watch it, was that Chris Duncan is an absolute tank and you basically can't take that man down. Now, has he been taken down before? Yes. Manuel Torres took him down. He put absolutely everything into that takedown. It was a body lock takedown. He basically used all of his energy source. Like if he didn't get those takedowns and jump on his back and submit him, he probably would have got finished in the same round. He probably wouldn't even lasted to round 2 because that's how much energy he was using. It was pure physicality and I think it caught Duncan off guard, and I honestly feel like he would struggle taking him down if they run that back, I think Duncan has got stronger since then. He's grown into his frame. He's fully formed now at 32 years old as a mixed martial artist. And I think it's going to be very hard for someone like Moicano to take him down. Can he do a little slick trip body lock takedown or body lock takedown in and jump on his back? Yes, he can do it. That is the way to do it. But you ain't going to just grapple Chris. He's just too strong. His physicality is crazy in there. I think people disregard the physicality. I think that's probably one of his best attributes, honestly, just the sheer physicality. So I think it's going to be tough for Moicano to grapple him here. Look, Moicano is one of the best submission artists in the world. Can he jump on a neck or something like that? Yes, that is one of his paths to victory in every fight, including this fight, of course. But I definitely think Chris will be able to defend takedowns and even get takedowns of his own if he wants to. He usually doesn't, but I think he can do it if he wants to. He just needs to be very smart with his head and the positions he puts his head in, because Moicano has elite chokes. But he will know that, training with Moicano for all of those years. So it's like he's going to be smart and not put his head into danger. I would be interested to see his game plan if he does shoot takedowns here. I think that is a path. I think he can get takedowns. I also think we could see a big shot from Chris on the feet here. I mean, Chris hits really hard. Obviously, in the McKinney fight, it was a submission. It should have been a TKO. That should have been called. In the Rebecca fight, he was fighting someone who basically can't be KO'd. And even in that fight, like there was moments where I was thinking if he pours it on a little bit more and lands just a couple of perfect shots, the fight could potentially be called. I mean, Rebecca his face was a mess. Chris was at the end of the third round as well. But at the end of round 1, Rebecca's face was basically a wreck. If the guy wasn't so tough, if that was another guy in there, it's probably a knockout win for Chris in that fight. The fight before that, Jordan Vucinic, he hurts Vucinic badly with a big shot. So I think this guy's got big power and people haven't seen it maybe lately just because of the run of fights he's had, a couple of guillotine wins or a couple of front chokes and then the Rebecca fight. So boys, I won't go too much longer on this one, right? Because obviously I'm going to be backing Chris here. I'm rooting for Chris throughout his entire career. I'm never going to bet against him. I'm never going to pick against him. And I think he wins this one. I'm picking Chris to win this one. I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be another war, honestly. I don't think it's going to be a clean fight. I think both fighters will get tagged. So Chris Duncan, money line. That's my official prediction. I haven't made any bets on this one, boys. I don't want to be biased. So oftentimes I don't bet publicly. You know, I'll always have a bit of money on Chris. How can I not, you know? All my friends. But publicly and in my elite zone, my tipping group, oftentimes I don't tip or bet on people that are my friends because I don't want to be biased. Bias can take over anyone. So I like to be smart there. So no bets for me publicly, but I'm going to have some beer money on Chris outside of the public sphere. You know, I guess it's public now, but you get what I'm trying to say, boys. Pick is Chris Duncan, war Chris Duncan. Let's get it. So, boys, as I mentioned, I did do a full interview with Chris Duncan. That's going to be dropping either tomorrow or the next day. I just wanted to give you a little snippet of that. And I asked him exactly how he sees the fight playing out stylistically with Manny Moicano this weekend. And here's what he had to say.
Good stuff, man. I can't wait for it. And, you know, people that are going to be watching this, a lot of them are degenerate sports bettors, right? Gamblers who gamble on MMA. So I want to ask you, how can I phrase this?
Fourth
I want to ask you
finish. Fourth round finish.
You know what I was going to ask?
Yeah. Fourth round finish.
All right.
I feel the way that my pacing's been going, and some of the tactics that I've had in the game or in the strategic kind of plan for the game, fourth round finish for sure. Fourth or fifth. If there was a way to bet, is there a way to bet in the latter end of the finish? Yeah.
You can spread it out. You can spread it out.
Spread it.
And we can even get more degenerate. And I'm going to ask you this to ladder. We call it laddering, right? So you ladder the bet. So we ladder 2 or 3 or 4 bets onto each other, right? Like if you imagine a ladder, we place multiple bets. But we can cash them all. So I'm going to ask, all right, the 4th and 5th round finish is the prediction. Are we going 4th round TKO, KO, or submission? Can you narrow it down to one? Because we're going to get much bigger odds.
I don't think I would ever submit him, to be honest. I've never submitted him in the gym. He's one of the only guys I've never submitted in the gym.
Okay.
I would be very, very surprised if I submit him. I'm going to try and knock him out. That's exactly what I'm going to try and do. And I definitely see it 4th or 5th round. The way I'm pacing myself in the fight, the way that the game plan's set up, the 4th and the 5th round is going to be where I overtake him. And I'm overtaking everybody in the gym like that right now. So I would go TKO 4th or 5th in the latter end. Unless I blast him early doors, but I'm still going to swing for the hilts.
Next up, we have a women's MMA fight with Virna Jandiroba taking on Tabatha Ricci. Virna Jandiroba coming into this fight with a record of 22 wins, 4 losses. Tabatha Ricci, on the other hand, much less experience in professional MMA, 12 wins and 3 losses. In the battle of the women's Brazilian fighters, we have Tabatha Ricci as a -135 favourite, with the underdog price tag on Virna Jandiroba sitting at +115 to make it a very closely lined fight. The battle of the Brazilian woman here. It's an interesting fight, boys. You know, the first thing that stands out to me in this one, as I always tell you, what stands out to me straight away is that Virna Jandiroba is the underdog. And the reason that stands out to me is because I am a little bit surprised. Why am I little bit surprised? It's because Virna's coming off a title fight, right? So she was good enough to make it to challenge for the belt in the weight class, right? So she's basically top 1 or 2 of the entire division. Usually, if you challenge for the belt, it means you're either the best or the second best in the division. Not all the time. You know, sometimes they give Dan Henderson a title shot against Michael Bisping when neither of the two are even top 5 in the division. But most of the time, you're either top 1 or 2, right? And I do believe Virna Jandiroba is, you know, top 3, top 4 in the division. So to see her as an underdog, I was quite surprised. I mean, Tabatha Ricci has not done amazing things in the UFC where she should be a favorite, in my opinion. I mean, she lost the fight against Lupita Godinez, who is obviously a lower level fighter than Virna Jandiroba. She lost against Xiaonan Yan handedly. Virna Jandiroba ran through Xiaonan Yan handedly. I'm not going to do MMA math. What I'm trying to tell you is I'm surprised at the odds based on their performances in the UFC. Virna was kind of outclassed against Mackenzie Dern. She has now lost to her 2 times, and Mackenzie Dern's just a bad matchup for her because Virna's not really going to do much with her on the ground and on the feet. I'm not going to say she's a worse striker, but Mackenzie Dern's more of an effective striker. You know, technically, if they hit the pads, I don't really know who looks better, but Mackenzie Dern's just more durable. She hits way harder. She's way more aggressive. She has way better optics on the feet. Like, she's going to win the striking battle, right? And so it's a bad matchup for Virna. And I bet, and me and everybody on the Elite Zone bet on Mackenzie Dern for that reason. But I don't believe it's the same dynamic here, you know? I think this one is a close fight, boys. But I lean Virna Jandiroba's way, especially since she's the underdog, because I believe that if she gets on top, she could dominate because she's very good on top. She's probably the best in the division. She's probably better than Mackenzie Dern on top. Now, look, it's a very tough thing to determine who's better on top, Mackenzie Dern or Virna Jandiroba. They're both pretty similar. Virna Jandiroba has solidified herself as more of a submission threat, in my opinion, even though Mackenzie Dern has higher level credentials of her in pure jiu-jitsu. This is MMA. This is not jiu-jitsu. They're both very, very good on the ground. You know, I don't want to say one's better than the other. Basically, boys, what I'm trying to say is they're two of the best girls on the ground at all. Like, Virna Jandiroba is as good as Mackenzie Dern. Like, that's how good she is. She could dominate you, take you down and beat you up on the ground, but also submit you. And I feel like Ricci has not gone up against a test like that before. So I don't know how Ricci's going to respond to that. The times I have seen her on the ground, she's looked pretty good. She's got up straight away. You know, when she got taken down via a judo throw against Amanda Ribas, she tried to hip escape and buck multiple times, about 6 times. She couldn't get her off her. Amanda Ribas was holding her down, you know, fairly easily. But Ricci was able to put her feet on the fence, kick off the fence, and create a stand-up out of that. But watching that, in my mind, I was like, if this was in the middle of the octagon, maybe she wouldn't have got up. And if that was Virna Jandiroba taking her down in the middle of the octagon this weekend, I don't know if she gets up, you know? The other time was against Gillian Robertson, but I honestly feel like Virna Jandiroba is much better grappler and wrestler than Amanda Ribas and Gillian Robertson. I really do believe that. And it's funny because Amanda Ribas and Gillian Robertson are both two of the higher level grapplers in women's MMA. But Virna Jandiroba just happens to be higher level than that. You know, she's on the same level as Mackenzie Dern to some degree. Probably even better overall because she's got the wrestling, whereas Mackenzie Dern doesn't really have that, you know? So yeah, I feel like if she gets on top, she's probably going to win the fight. On the feet, Ricci is a better striker though. So if she can't get a takedown, she's probably going to lose. Although I don't think Ricci has any power on the feet, despite her last fight being a knockout win. Amanda Ribas is extremely chinny. She's been knocked out multiple times. She quit in that fight. It wasn't a clean knockout. It was a quit job. I'm not saying anything negative to Amanda about quitting, but she did quit in that fight. It is what it is. She was painful. She probably broke her orbital. I didn't look into it in heavy detail, but she must have broke her orbital or something like that because she just completely quit after getting elbowed. It was an extremely strange finish. I think they run that fight 10 times. And I don't think Ricci does that to her 1 out of 10 times. I think you actually have to run that fight about 30 times for her to get it. You know, I think it happens maybe 3 or 4 times in 100. So not even 1 in 10. So I think it's just a completely random outcome there. I don't think she has power. And Amanda Ribas is one of those fighters where she's a bit brittle. You know, she's not really built like a fighter. She's very good skill-wise, but she's not a fighter. You know, she's a pretty girl. She's like, her bones are not strong. Her chin she doesn't have a chin. She gets knocked out all the time. She gets wobbled. She gets dropped. She quit. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, her bones are brittle. Like, I don't think she's built for a fight, like a fighter. You know, she's a sweet girl. She's laughing all the time. I don't really think she ain't a Amanda Nunes, you know. She ain't even a Virna Jandiroba, you know, someone who can take a lot of punishment. A Mackenzie Dern, you know. They're all sweet girls, but Amanda Ribas is a bit different if you get what I'm trying to say. I don't think we can take too much from that knockout win, you know. Outside of that, I don't think she has a lot of power. And I don't think she's going to knock out Virna. I think she'll win on the feet, but I don't think like she's just going to dominate on the feet and it's so easy. Like, it's probably going to be a kind of close. Like, Ricci will be winning, but Virna will land a couple of shots and stuff like that. And honestly, I think this fight's going to play out in the grappling. I mean, all Virna's fights play out in the grappling. Like, it's very rare that Virna doesn't go to the grappling or get her own way. Also, Ricci will engage in the grappling because she's a grappler herself. So I'd be very surprised if this fight just stays on the feet for 15 minutes. And even in that fight, it's probably not a 30-27. It's probably a 29-28 for Ricci. And if the fight gets on the ground, I just think there's massive upside for Virna Jandiroba. I think Ricci can take her down as well because Ricci is very aggressive grappler. She will shoot double legs, single legs, and she's quite strong and physical. She's quite small, but she gets in under your legs and she's quite strong and physical. But I don't think she will have much success against Virna. She might get her down and, you know, control her for 30 seconds, but I feel like she'll get swept. I feel like Virna will reverse position, continue the wrestling scramble and end up on top herself. So I have to pick Virna here in a fight where, you know, she's beat better level of competition. She's fought better fighters. She has more experience in the UFC, more experience in MMA, and her skill set is more dominant than Ricci's if it gets there, in my opinion. Like, her advantage in the fight is top control, and I think she's more dominant in that than Ricci's advantage, which will mainly be in the striking, you know? So I have to pick Virna for that reason. I don't know if I'm going to bet her, though. Honestly, boys, she's 37 years old and Tabatha Ricci is 31. So that's a big thing here. I mean, Ricci's coming into her prime. Virna's just fought for the title. Oftentimes when fighters lose a title fight, they don't bounce back as good in their next fight because, you know, they've got to the top of the hill. They tried to fight for what they have been fighting for the last 20 years, 10 years, however long they've been training, and they failed. And so the motivation kind of dwindles. That does happen a lot. So, you know, at such a closely lined fight like this, when Ricci's the one coming into her prime, Virna's 37, coming off a title defeat, it's not that appealing to me. But if you want me to make a prediction, I'm most certainly going to pick the underdog Virna Jandiroba in this one. But will I bet it? Link in the bio if you want to know that. I haven't decided myself yet. I will decide and post it out to the Elite Zone in the coming days if I do bet on it. Maybe I take a different angle. Maybe I bet the over. I like betting women's MMA overs in high-level competitions, high-level matchups, because they're just both so good that they don't really finish each other. And as we know, women's MMA, there's not finishes that much in that weight class unless someone has a big deficiency somewhere. And I don't think anyone has a massive deficiency here. I feel like it probably will go to a decision. The line will be juiced, but maybe I still play it. Maybe there's another angle. Maybe I take a fighter via decision or something. I don't know, boys. My ultimate pick will be Virna Jandiroba, but currently, and I'll pick her via decision, but currently no bets on this fight. Next up, we have Abdul Rakhman Yakhyaev taking on Brendson Ribeiro. Yakhyaev coming into this fight, 8 wins, no losses. Yakhyaev, one of 4 undefeated fighters on this fight card. Brendson Ribeiro, on the other hand, definitely not undefeated. 17 wins with 9 losses. Currently, Yakhyaev, as you would expect, the minus 1,400 favorite with the underdog price tag on Ribeiro sitting at plus 850. Anyone interested in a plus 850 Ribeiro play? Let me know in the comment. I don't know if I'll join you, but that's a big, big price. Murder. Oh, bloody murder. Boys, this is a murder scene. Brendson Ribeiro, I mean, he's probably going to get murdered this weekend. He's probably going to get murdered. Yakhyaev is a force to be reckoned with. He's going to walk forward into range, maybe jump into range, and execute Brendson Ribeiro. In my opinion, Ribeiro does not have the durability to hang on the feet with Yakhyaev's attacks. And even in the grappling and wrestling, Yakhyaev is a good wrestler, a better wrestler than Ribeiro. So you could just take him down and dominate him there. So I'm calling a round 1 finish for Yakhyaev. The guy is minus 1,400 on a money line. I don't really want to speak too much in depth about this one, boys. All I will say is Yakhyaev is a legitimate prospect in the light heavyweight division. He could go far. It's not hard to go far in the heavyweight and light heavyweight division. All you need to do is have a bit of grappling and you're probably going to make it to top 10. Yakhyaev has a bit of grappling and a lot more than that as well. We still yet to see him truly tested. We still yet to see his full skill set and arsenal, but I believe he's a very, very promising prospect and he's probably going to go all the way to the top of the division, to be honest. Not saying the champion, who knows? I need to see a bit more, but he's probably going to go to the top of the division, like top 5 or something, you know, and if so, he's going to execute Ribeiro here. Interesting note about this fight is that it got finalized 2 weeks ago. I'm going to show you a picture on the screen right now. You can see Brendson Ribeiro signing the contract just 2 weeks ago. So very short camp, very strange one. I don't really know why he signed to fight 2 weeks before the fight. I don't know if Yakhyaev knew he was going to fight on this date. I don't really know. All I know is that Ribeiro wasn't fighting 3 weeks ago. He only decided to fight 2 weeks ago. So I don't think that's going to help him out. You know, he's not going to be able to game plan properly. He's probably just going to have to watch his weight now and, you know, try and dial in his cardio and stuff like that. I don't really think he's going to have a proper game plan for Yakhyaev, and you need to game plan for someone like that because he's just too explosive. At the end of the day, boys, we may be looking at someone special here. Yakhyaev is going to run through Brendson Ribeiro this weekend, and if he doesn't, he's going to dominate him via decision. But it's not going to go to decision because he's definitely going to run through him. But he has the tools to do it as well. I've seen this guy go 5 rounds before. He's been 25 minutes at light heavyweight. I believe it was a light heavyweight matchup. He was very young. I'm going to have to see. Maybe it was middleweight, but I think it was light heavyweight. He went 25 minutes and he was ragdolling the guy in round 5. You know, so this guy could be special, and that's it. No breakdown outside of that, man. Special versus maybe not even UFC level. He's going to spark him in round 1. Round 1 finish for Yakhyaev. I'll say KO. Next up, Rafael Estevam is taking on Ethyn Ewing in most likely the best fight on the entire fight card. Rafael Estevam coming into this fight with a record of 14 wins, no losses. Ethyn Ewing fresh off the Malcolm Wellmaker win, coming into this fight 9 wins, 2 losses. Speak about closely lined fights. We have Rafael Estevam as a minus 125 favorite with the underdog price tag on Ethyn Ewing sitting at plus 105. Ethyn Ewing, the upset killer. Is that a word? The upset killer? I don't know if that's a word. Basically, this guy came in and had a massive upset in his last fight against Malcolm Wellmaker, and I'm very excited to see him back in the octagon because I think he's a very solid fighter. You know, I didn't make a bet on that Malcolm Wellmaker versus Ethyn Ewing fight, but I really, really wish I had bet Ethyn Ewing. I know a couple of people were on him, and, you know, I decided to pass because I respect Malcolm Wellmaker. I still respect him to this day. And Ethyn Ewing honestly dominated him in that fight. You know, he made him look quite bad. Look, Malcolm competed for sure, but there was a big class difference. You know, Ethyn Ewing just was way better of a boxer, way better technical striker, way smarter on the feet, and just a much better mixed martial artist. And I feel like you could say the same here against Rafael Estevam. You know, I believe that he is the much better mixed martial artist, Ewing. The issue is Rafael Estevam has such an elite UFC level skill set in one area, which is the wrestling and grappling. He's a really good wrestler and grappler, man. He can really take you down. He's got really good takedowns, and he has really good top control as well. Look, it's not Khabib, it's not Islam. He makes mistakes. Fighters can scramble. They get up on him like Charles Johnson, like Jesus Aguilar. Just go and watch those fights. He makes a lot of mistakes. It's still a very, very high level MMA skill set. And the issue is he can shoot 15 takedowns a fight. And that's a very hard style to beat. You know, one of the hardest styles to beat in MMA is the fighter who can shoot 15 takedowns and not get tired. Now, Estevam can't do it without getting tired, but he pushes through well. But I feel like that could be a key of this fight because I do think Estevam will get tired in this fight at some point. It's just, has he banked 2 rounds before he gets tired in round 3 and Ewing has to knock him out, which is going to be a tough ask at 135 pounds against a 14-0 undefeated Brazilian. I want to go off on a slight tangent here because I forgot to mention it. Yes, this is at 135 pounds. Rafael Estevam is a 125 pound fighter and he's moving up in weight now to fight Ethyn Ewing. So I don't know why he's moving up in weight. And when I say that, I mean, I don't know if the UFC have forced him up to move up in weight or whether he's moved up in weight himself. I don't know what one it is. He did miss weight 2 times already in the UFC. So I'm sure he's not really suited to the flyweight weight class, or he's just not doing his dieting correctly. You know, he doesn't have good nutrition, whatever it is. But I don't know if he's going to be as effective at 135 and at 125. And to be honest, I don't think he'll be as effective at 135 as he was at 125. Just because the guys are more strong here, they're more physically. I mean, one thing about Estevam was that guy is strong. You know what I mean? Relentless, but also very strong. Like, you can see it in all of his fights. He's strong. He's annoying when he gets hold of you. I don't think he's going to be as strong at 135. Look, he could do well moving up, right? He could do well moving up. I usually like it when fighters move up versus move down. You know, all my years watching the sport, it seemed to me that when fighters move up, it usually goes better than when they move down. So maybe this goes well for him. But Ethyn Ewing is a solid guy at 135. You know, very well-rounded, strong, good wrestling, good jiu-jitsu, good cardio, good boxing. You know, this could go two ways for Estevam because one of Estevam's big issues is he gasses out. You know, he gasses out in most of his fights. He gassed out against Jesus Aguilar, he gassed out against Charles Johnson, and he's gassing out at the lighter weight classes where guys are easier to take down, right? Is he going to gas out even more now trying to take down these heavier guys? Or was he killing himself to make 125? I think he kind of was. And that was depleting his cardio. You know, it could go both ways. It really could. It's always tough. It could definitely go both ways. I don't have a strong opinion on how it will go. Something cool about Ethyn Ewing is that he lost his first 2 fights and he hasn't lost since. You know, he's on a 9-fight win streak. He lost the first 2 fights, so his record is 9-2. He reminds me of Jack Della Maddalena in that regard, you know? And honestly, he reminds me of Jack Della Maddalena with his striking as well, a little bit. The ability they have with the boxing to continue the combination. So in MMA, and Ilia Topuria spoke about this in depth, but I have been speaking about it for years before, where in MMA, and I have a slightly different take on it, but in MMA, you will see a lot of 1-2s, a lot of hooks, a lot of 1-2 hooks. You don't see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You don't see that, right? But Jack Della Maddalena, he'll put a 1-2 hook on you, and then he'll go 1-2 hook again, uppercut, jab, jab, 2, you know what I mean? Like he will throw 6-7 strikes after the initial 2 or 3. And you don't see that in MMA. You see that in boxing. You don't see that in MMA. The good thing about people like Jack Della Maddalena and Ethyn Ewing is that they put the 7, 8, 9 strike combinations together. And that's really where they get their knockouts. If you watch the Billy Brand fight, the knockout came because he stayed in the pocket and fired once he had already finished his initial combination. And he put Billy Brand out there. And that's what he was doing to Malcolm Wellmaker. You know, he would put a 1-2-3 on Wellmaker, and instead of then like circling off and then restarting the combination like all these MMA fighters do, because they're not trained in boxing or traditional martial arts, you know, even martial arts like Muay Thai, they don't add the combinations on as much as someone like boxing, right? But Ethyn Ewing, you could tell he's trained in boxing, and he'll put the 1-2-3 on Malcolm Wellmaker, but then he'll stand there, and then he'll continue. So he'll put another hook, straight hook, you know, whereas fighters don't do that. And I mean, it's a massive advantage in MMA because MMA fighters are not used to that. They're like, all right, 1, 2, 3, sweet, I got hit. Now we're going to reset again. But then Ethyn Ewing's right there going, boom, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're like, what the I'm not expecting this. You know, you could see Malcolm was not ready for that. You know, Malcolm was ready for the 1, 2, 3 maybe, but it was those extended combinations in the pocket, which he wasn't really ready for. And most of Ethyn Ewing's opponents haven't been ready for it. And I don't think Rafael Estevam will be ready for it this weekend. Look, I do think Estevam will get takedowns here. I do think that, because if you go back and watch that Billy Brand fight I just referenced, Billy did take him down 2 times, even controlled him on the first one. And honestly, Ethyn Ewing went to a close guard on the first takedown, and I didn't love to see that. He was up against the cage. I felt like he could have instantly just, you know, posted on Billy Brand, put a foot on the hip and used the cage to stand up. Instead, he went close guard and ended up like rolling underneath for a leg, and then that created a scramble, which was able to get him out of the position. And then Billy, you know, got a front headlock and stuff like that. He gave up a front headlock a couple of times, which Rafael Estevam will go to. He'll go to the cradle. He will go to the front headlock to use to roll you over and get top position again. So I do think Estevam's going to take him down. I think he's going to take him down in round 1. I think Estevam's going to win round 1, but I think Ethyn Ewing's going to win round 2 and round 3. And I think Ethyn Ewing's going to outclass him on the feet, and he could even hurt him badly. He can even finish him, honestly, in like round 3. It could be a round 3 finish. I really think Ethyn Ewing he could be that guy. He could be that guy. You know, they talk about Tommy McMillen as being like that guy. I think Ethyn Ewing could be that guy. I think he's that good. I really, really do. So if he's that good, he should beat Estevam. Estevam is 14-0, undefeated, with wins over Charles Johnson, Jesus Aguilar, some good fighters. But I personally feel that Ethyn Ewing's going to dog this one out. I think it's going to be a gritty fight, but I think Ethyn's cardio is going to be shown in full effect here, and I think his boxing's going to be shown. Estevam's going to try and do his best to avoid the striking, and I think he will for 5 minutes, but I don't think he'll be able to do it for 10 minutes. And I definitely don't think he'll be able to do it for 15 minutes. I think at some point, Ethyn's going to get separation and he's going to put a lot of damage on Estevam. I also like the calf kicks of Ethyn Ewing. I think that can slow down Estevam. And one thing I do want to mention, boys, is that yes, he has been taken down on the regional scene. I did mention that Billy Brand fight, but Billy Brand is a very good striker. Much better than Rafael Estevam, I'll tell you that now. So Ethyn Ewing had to worry about the striking in that fight. And so, yes, the takedowns come easier. In this fight, he ain't going to worry about the striking too much. He's just going to have to defend the wrestling. And I think that's going to allow him to defend it better than he did against Billy. And ultimately, you know, grit out the fight and win the 2nd and 3rd round, and maybe even en route to a finish. Something that I saw on Ethyn Ewing's Instagram, which was quite interesting, was this quote right here. So he said, "I'm proficient wherever this fight goes. I'm more than ready for anything, grappling attacks and beyond, capable of launching my own. This fight will showcase all aspects of mixed martial arts, but the accuracy on the feet, along with the patience and control, will be the final outcome." And honestly, Ethyn, I agree with you completely. I feel like that is the entire fight there. So look, boys, it's not a lock. Ethyn Ewing's currently the underdog, and so the underdog will be my final prediction. I have Ethyn Ewing to win this fight via round 3 TKO. One thing I want to mention to you, boys, is that I'm committing to put out a bunch of free bets, free plays, free information, free giveaways, which I do quite often in my Telegram channel, which is also free to join. So if you want to join the Telegram channel, the link is in the bio. A bunch of stuff is in there. I'm not going to go through now, like giveaways and all that type of stuff. If you want to join, link is in the bio. Let's get back to the fights. Next up, we have Tommy McMillen, fresh off the Dana White's Contender Series, taking on Manolo Zecchini. Tommy McMillen is a 9-0 undefeated prospect. Manolo Zecchini has a record of 11 wins and 4 losses. Tommy McMillen, the second biggest favorite on the entire fight card at minus 750 odds, with the underdog price tag on Manolo Zecchini sitting at plus 550. Yeah, so this Tommy McMillen has a bit of hype about him. He's a training partner of Sean O'Malley, kind of looks like Sean O'Malley, kind of fights like Sean O'Malley. You know, he has some cool striking setups. He loves that flying knee that O'Malley throws, similar hairstyle. He has some similar movements to him. He has that, that pullback overhand right that O'Malley throws as well. So yeah, he has some similarities there. I don't think he's on the level of O'Malley at all. I don't think he's as smooth. I'm kind of shocked to see his odds being minus 750 just because of his Contender Series fight, and he's extremely hittable in general. You know, he takes a lot of shots, and yeah, he looks durable, but I've seen him hurt before. I've seen him dropped. I've seen him wobbled. I've seen him put in tight submissions. Even in the Contender Series fight in round 1, he was put in a very, very deep guillotine. I thought he was going to tap, when I was watching it. Obviously, he didn't. He's undefeated now. But I don't know, man. I don't really understand the hype around Tommy McMillen according to the price tag. Look, I think that he's got a lot of talent and he could be good. And I think that he went into that fight heavily injured. He said he went into the fight heavily injured. I watched one of his interviews or a bit of it, and he basically said he had a pinched sciatic nerve, and so his foot went numb. So for 3 training camps back-to-back, including Dana White's Contender Series, he basically couldn't wrestle. He said for this camp, he's wrestled more in the last 2 months than he has done in the last 2 years. But honestly, the Dana White's Contender Series fight, it wasn't his wrestling that looked bad. His wrestling looked good. His sprawls looked good. His takedown defense looked good. If anything looked bad, it was his striking defense. He just kept getting caught with big shots, So I don't know what to think about Tommy McMillen yet. I feel like the jury's still out on him. He could be good. I'm not going to sit here and make a prediction yet on where his future will be. I will make a prediction on the fight. I think he's going to smoke Manolo. I mean, this guy's been out since 2023. I don't know what's going on with him, to be honest. The last time we saw him in the octagon was his debut, where we got fed to Morgan Charriere in his home country, and he got smoked in round 1. He got hurt to the body and just basically didn't want to fight anymore. I don't think Manolo has any real UFC level skill sets, and I'm not even sure he should be here in the UFC. All respect to him. I don't think he is really UFC level, and I think Tommy will show that this weekend. Like I said, I'm not convinced on the future of Tommy McMillen as the future star that he is being made out to be when he's 0-0 in the UFC. I'm saying that, but I'm also saying that he's probably going to smoke Manolo here. Probably a round 1 finish. I actually like Tommy's grappling. I know he's a training partner of Sean O'Malley, but his wrestling grappling is a lot better than Sean O'Malley's, in my opinion. He seems to have worked on it a lot more. And I think a submission could be live here. People might be playing the knockout, considering he's Sean O'Malley's training partner, and I'm sure he's going to have a lot of comparisons to him coming up this week on Fight Week. But he does have a lot of submission finishes, and he has a lot of submissions in his arsenal. I specifically like his front chokes. So I will actually call a front choke finish in round 1 for Tommy McMillen here. Maybe he hurts him on the feet and, he's able to set up a front choke based on that, like a club and sub. Or maybe Manolo shoots a takedown, he reverses it, finds himself on top, gets a submission. I will predict a round 1 submission for Tommy McMillen in this fight. Next up, it's Thomas Petersen taking on Guilherme Pat in the heavyweight division. Thomas Petersen coming into this fight, 10 wins, 4 losses. Guilherme Pat, on the other hand, 6 wins, 0 losses. We have Stephen Asplund versus Vitor Betrino 2, kind of. Thomas Petersen coming into this fight with a record of 10 wins, 4 losses. Guilherme Pat, on the other hand, shiny record of 6 wins and no losses. So speaking of closely lined fights, it's a theme throughout this fight card. We have Guilherme Pat as the minus 115 favorite, if you want to call him a favorite. And we have Thomas Petersen, the minus 105 underdog, if you want to call him that, at minus money. Anytime you have an underdog at minus money, it's probably going to be a close fight. This is an interesting one, boys. I got to say shout out to Guilherme Pat. He cashed us a massive ticket, massive cycle, massive big parlay on, I think it was the final episode, the final fight card of the year, I believe it was, where we bet Guilherme Pat fight to go to a decision at plus 300 odds. And honestly, the reason I did that is a big reason I'm going to use in this breakdown here. The reason I did that is because you go and watch Pat's tape, and this guy just bounces on the outside, and he's hurt his opponents because he's super athletic, and he hurts his opponents, and then he just doesn't pressure them. It's like they're there to be knocked out, and he just looks at them and he's like, I don't want to F up my cardio. I don't want to push the finish. I don't want to get myself in danger. Whatever the reason is going through his mind that he doesn't do this, I don't know, but he simply doesn't pursue a finish even when it's on the table, right? And so that's why I bet goes to decision at plus 300 and all of that. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because I'm pretty sure he's going to land on Thomas Petersen. He's the faster party. He's way more athletic. He's the better striker. He's got way better footwork. He moves like Cyril Gane on the feet. I'm not saying he's his level. What I'm saying is the way he moves on the feet with his footwork at his size, at his athleticism, reminds me of Cyril Gane. Not a lot of fighters can move like that in the heavyweight division. And kind of like Cyril Gane, he doesn't really really pursue finishes either. Now, Cyril Gane definitely is better at it, and he's just a much better fighter overall, by far. But I feel like in this fight, he's probably going to sting Petersen. But if he doesn't pursue a finish, Petersen ain't going to stop coming, man. Honestly, this fight reminds me of Vitor Petrino, aka Guilherme Pat, versus Steven Asplund, aka Thomas Petersen. The big difference is Petersen is the wrestling version of Steven Asplund, right? I'm not saying, look, people in the comments are going to be like, what a terrible analogy because Petersen doesn't have a chin and Asplund has a great chin. Look, I'm not saying they're the exact same person with every single thing is the same. I'm saying they're similar. And in this dynamic, it's a similar fight to the Petrino fight, and I'm going to tell you why. The big difference is that Petersen is the wrestling version of Asplund. And I think that's going to suit him here because, look, at the end of the day, even if he's the more grinding fighter, even if he's going to push forward, if he's a little bit more tougher, he's just going to be outskilled on the feet. But I do think that he can get his takedowns going here. And if he gets his takedowns going, that's where Guilherme Pat can start to give up, can start to get tired. I feel like Pat doesn't want to gas out, and that's why he doesn't press the pace. And even if he doesn't press the pace, he still gasses out. I feel like in the round threes I've seen, he's there for the taking. If someone's a bit better, a bit grimy, a bit stronger, they could finish him. I feel someone like Steven Asplund would probably finish Guilherme Pat in round 3 if he pushed the pace. I don't think Pat hits as hard as Petrino. That's why I think Asplund wasn't pressuring him as much because he did get hit hard and stuff like that. But anyway, we won't go into that fight. Boys, this is a hard fight to call, right? It's a closely lined fight for a reason. I think Pat is way more athletic. I think his footwork's way better. I think he's a way better striker. I think he's just better at a lot of MMA, honestly. But where I do give Petersen the advantage is the will to win, is the mentality, is the wrestling, is the grappling, is the overall size in general. Like, he's not as big or athletic or as long as Pat, but when he's on top of you, he's more grindy, he's bigger, he's rougher, he's fatter, So those are the advantages I give to Petersen. I'm going to say Petersen gets styled on for 7.5 minutes and then he comes back and gets a finish in round 3. I'm actually going to predict that. I will say if Guilherme Pat had any sense of a finishing instinct in his body, I would probably predict Pat to get a finish over Petersen here. And it still can happen because Petersen does have slight chin issues. So maybe Pat does get a finish here. And like I said, if Pat had more finishing instinct, I would actually predict him via finish here, but I think he's going to look like he's going to get a finish in round 1, and then Petersen's going to come back and start to wear on him. It's tough to trust Petersen because he's at a big athletic disadvantage here. This is a great fight. I could speak about it for hours, but I'm going to ultimately, for now, and I'm going to watch more tape on this one, boys. Some fights I don't watch more tape on. Some fights I do. I am going to actually watch more tape on this one because I'm very interested in this one. But ultimately, for this video, boys, I will predict Petersen to get outskilled, easily outclassed in the first 7.5 minutes and then push his way back into the fight in round 2 and round 3 and win this fight via finish in round 3 or via close decision. Next up, we have Robert Ruchala taking on Jose Delano. Ruchala coming into this fight, 11 wins, 2 losses. Delano, on the other hand, 16 wins and 3 losses. They have Delano as a big favorite here, boys. Jose Delano sitting as a minus 400 favorite with the underdog price tag on Robert Ruchala coming back at plus 330. Yeah, I'm going to come out right and say it. We have to pick Jose Delano in this fight. I mean, he's the biggest favorite on the card, I think. No, Yakhyaev is the biggest favorite on the card. I think he's the second biggest favorite. As I said, lots of closely lined fights on this card. I'm actually going to check it in real time with you guys right now. Okay, Tommy McMillen is minus 1,000 now as I'm recording this. He's actually jumped up heavily since I introduced him. So yeah, he's the third biggest favorite on the card. We've got minus 1,400 Rakhmanov, minus 1,000 McMillen, and then minus 400 Jose Delano. And yeah, I feel like Jose Delano is going to win this fight. I think he's just much better than Robert Ruchala. To be honest, boys, Ruchala's not the worst fighter. It was 1-1 going into round 3 against Gomes. Like, he can get top position. He sells out for top position. He's pretty good when he gets down there. But outside of that, he doesn't have much to offer. Good experience, fought some good guys over there at KSW, did well against some good guys, but I just feel like he's in over his head here. Jose Delano is a very good fighter, very composed fighter. I love his decision wins because it shows the entirety of his skill set. And he's got a bunch of decision wins there against fighters who have one defeat, or like 9-1, 14-1. And even the Contender Series fight, he beat that guy from pillar to post. I bet on Jose Delano via decision there. Sorry, I bet on Jose Delano there, but I also bet on him to finish. And I was like, are you taking a piss? Like, how has he not finished this guy? That guy was so tough. And then in that guy's next fight, he got stopped via knockout, but it was a corner stoppage. And that was like the only way you're going to finish this guy, his corner has to step step in because he's so tough, man. I felt like the corner could step in a Dana White's Contender Series fight. The reason they didn't is because it's Dana White's Contender Series. You can't step in as a corner when your fighter is fighting for the UFC. It's so unlucky because it's like if the Jose Delano fight happened, but it was in the UFC already, or it was in any other organization, the corner's probably going to stop that fight, right? Because they stopped his next fight. And I haven't watched the next fight, but I mean, he got beat up bad in that first fight. But because it was on Dana White's Contender Series, the corner don't stop it, and so we don't cash our TKO prop. So little things like that in MMA happen all the time. It's just very annoying. There's no consistency with these things a lot of the time. But anyway, back to the fight, boys. I just think Delano's better almost everywhere. I think Delano's the type of fighter where sometimes he can take a while to get going. And what I mean by that is like, he makes reads in fight. Look, he's so good, he could just dominate you in round one. Of course, he's done that to fighters before. The Manuel fight, he just basically was beating him up from the first bell. But he's a smart fighter, you know, like he makes reads in there. So I feel like as the fight progresses, he's going to start to get his game going a little bit more. He can be hurt. We have seen that before, but I don't think Ruchala is much of a threat on the feet. So I'm picking Jose Delano here. I don't know if Delano will get a finish in this one or not. It's tough to say. I'm going to say that it is a decision, but it's like a beat down in round 3 where he's really hurting him. But yeah, ultimately I'll pick Jose Delano in this fight via decision. Next up, we have Alessandro Costa taking on Stewart Nicoll. Stewart Nicoll fighting for his UFC contract here, currently on a 2-fight loss streak in the UFC. If he loses this one, he will be cut from the flyweight division. Alessandro Costa coming into this fight with a record of 14 wins, 5 losses. Stewart Nicoll, 8 wins, 2 losses. The bookies think that Stewart Nicoll will get cut as they have Alessandro Costa as a minus 400 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Stewart Nicoll sitting at plus 330 odds. Yeah, so this is an interesting fight, boys. First of all, I want to say the first thing that stands out to me in this fight is that, boy oh boy, James, you was wrong about Stewart Nicoll. I thought he was a UFC level fighter. I thought he was a good fighter. Kind of the same way I thought Luis Garuli was. And they both just haven't proved to be what I thought they was. You know, sometimes you predict fighters really well. You know, like when Amanda Lemos came into the UFC or moved down in weight class, I said, this girl's going to go straight to the top. And she ended up fighting for a title. You know, it was a great prediction by me. I also said Peyton Talbot's one of the best fighters in the division and he's going to go on to do big things. A great prediction from me. I also said Stewart Nicoll was a really good fighter and he's going to do well in the division. Terrible prediction. Same with Luis Garuli. I didn't think he was like an elite, but I thought he was definitely better than he showed in the UFC going 0-3, especially with some poor losses against Jesus Aguilar and people like that. So yeah, I mean, sometimes you get fighters wrong. Sometimes you get them right. I feel like I've probably got Nicoll wrong. I thought he was better than he is. I still don't know if he should be a massive underdog like he is in this fight, you know, but I kind of felt like that about Garuli in his last fight. He shouldn't be a massive underdog in it. It's not like he got dominated in that fight, but probably no value at plus 300 or plus 250 or whatever it was. And I feel like the same here, you know. Nicoll's a good top grappler. He's very strong, very physical. But if you're athletic and, you know, you can stop him from getting you down, he don't really have much. He doesn't have much striking. He can be submitted, as we've seen in the Aguilar fight. He can make mistakes in scrambles. He falls off the top a lot. He's just quite relentless. So he's more of like a regional scene dominator, like Luis Garuli, in my opinion, than a UFC level fighter. So I feel like Alessandro Costa should win this fight. He's obviously a big favorite. I don't know if I'd make him such a big favorite. He seems physical and athletic enough to not let Nicoll get his game going, which is the only way he can win, which is by relentless takedowns, cardio, pressure, and breaking you down with grappling. And I don't think Costa's the type of fighter you can do that to if you don't have, like, if you can't match his athleticism. One of Costa's lifelong training partners is Diego Lopez. He trained with him all throughout that Volkanovski camp. So, you know, he's going to have learned a lot from him over the years. You can see a bit of Diego Lopez in him at times as well when he brawls and he's quite angry in there. And I think that's probably going to be enough to beat Stewart Nicoll. And Nicoll's last fight against Rocha is kind of like the same type of fighter, in my opinion, where, you know, Rocha's angry, he's mean, he's physical, he's athletic. He ain't going to give up takedowns easy. I mean, to be honest, Rocha does give up takedowns super easy, but he keeps getting back up to his feet. The same with Costa. I don't think he's going to give up takedowns easy, and he's going to get back up to his feet. You're going to need to take his back like Alden Correa did to really solidify anything, and even then, he could spin out of it. And on the feet, it is one-way traffic. Costa's just way better on the feet. Hits harder, good leg kicks. I don't know if I want to trust Costa at this price tag. I don't know how trustworthy he is. I mean, getting knocked out 2 times by an uppercut, or at least the uppercut started the knockout in such a lightweight class, is a little bit dodgy, especially both of them came in round 3. So is it like a quit job, cardio type job as well? It's just, you know, it raises some questions. He's a bit of a front runner. if he can't get his game going, he definitely doesn't look as good. Maybe he starts to doubt himself a little bit. So I don't know. There's just a bit of a weird vibes. But at the end of the day, he has only lost to Alden Correa, who's proved himself to be a good fighter. You know, I bet on Alden Correa in that spot at like plus 250. So I felt like he could win, and he did. It wasn't like a shock. You know, it wasn't a bad defeat at all. I thought he could win. And then Amir Albazi and Steve Erceg, his only other 2 losses in a Steve Erceg fight was 29-28. Extremely close. 1-1 going into round 3. But again, he faded in that fight and just got clinched and lost the round 3 after it being 1-1, and he clipped Steve Erceg, and it was like the fight's there for the taking, and he just has bad round 3s, man. He has really bad round 3s. In fact, he's lost every round 3 of his entire UFC career, and all 3 of those round 3s lost him the fight. He got knocked out in round 3 twice, and it was 1-1 going into round 3 against Erceg. Whoever wins round 3 wins the fight. And he lost round 3 to lose the fight. The other 2 fights didn't even get into round 3. He finished them in round 2. So maybe the full 15 minutes is not good to trust this guy, but I feel like he could get it inside the distance here, honestly. I mean, he's done it in his other 2 UFC fights. And honestly, watch him back that Stewart Nicoll versus Luka Rocha fight. Stewart Nicoll was there for the taking. You know, he's a tough guy. He pushed through, but I feel like somebody else, if it wasn't Rocha, could have got him out of there. And I honestly feel like Costa is probably that type of guy who can do it. So I'm going to pick Alessandro Costa via TKO in round 2 here to get another finish in round 2 and continue his 100% round 2 finish ratio in the UFC. Alessandro Costa, knockout in round 2 is my official prediction. Before we get to the next fight, I just want to say, if you've been watching these breakdowns and want to get my bets in real time rather than just my picks and my breakdowns, then here's what you need to know. Similar to what I said at the start of the show, actually, it basically did all the talking for me, but I'll just repeat that. Since 2019, my record, which is tracked independently and verifiable, has turned a $10,000 starting bankroll into over $200,000 on a standard scaling model of 50 units. If you adopt a 25-unit scaling model, it's turned it into over $480,000. That's every win, every loss, every drawdown included, and nothing hidden. And speaking about nothing hidden, unlike 99% of tipsters out there, I don't hide anything. Every single bet is third-party tracked. You're not taking my word for it. The numbers are there for anybody to see. I'm not guaranteeing anything. There's no guarantees in this game. But I don't need to, because the record speaks for itself. And that's what you're getting access to inside the Elite Zone. My picks, my analysis in real time, and the exact bets that I place every single week. So if you want to join the Elite Zone, the link is in the description. I will see you inside, and let's break down these last few fights. Next up, we have 2 guys who I didn't even know was still in the UFC, with very similar records as well. And they're both bald, kind of. Lando Vannata taking on Darrius Flowers. Lando Vannata coming into this fight, 12 wins, 7 losses, 2 draws. Darrius Flowers, 12 wins, 8 losses, and 1 draw. So very, very weird fight here, boys. But they do have Lando Vannata a pretty big favorite at minus 220, with the underdog price tag on Darrius Flowers sitting at plus 185. Boys, if there's one thing that I'm going to ask you to not make me do is give you a prediction on Lando Vannata versus Darrius Flowers. I'm going to give you one anyway, but please don't ask me to give you one. Or don't ask me to give you one in these type of fights, because, boys, what the is going on here, man? I mean, I don't know what's going on here. Like, Darrius Flowers 0-3 in the UFC, like, got signed off a Slam and Contender series, hasn't won any UFC fights, taking on Lando Vannata, hasn't fought since 2023. I thought he wasn't even in the organization anymore. I also thought Flowers wasn't after going 0-3, and here they are fighting each other in 2026. I don't know what to say. Darrius himself hasn't fought since 2024, so it's like, boys, I don't really know. I mean, I guess I got Lando Vannata. You know, he's definitely the way better striker. He's fought the way better level of competition. He's got wins in the UFC, legitimate wins. He's fought way better level of competition. He's had moments. I mean, you have to pick Vannata, right? But minus 220 against someone who, like, he could just crack him on the chin early. I mean, Flowers is going to swing. This is a weird as fight, boys. I mean, I got nothing much to say about this one. Vannata's 34. He announced this fight 2 weeks ago himself. It's like just a weird ass fight. I'll pick Lando Vannata here, boys. I'll pick Vannata via spinning wheel kick finish. That's my official prediction in round 2 when Flowers is gassed. That's my official prediction. Lando Vannata via spinning wheel kick knockout in round 2. Next up, we have Hailey Cowan taking on Alice Pereira. Hailey Cowan coming into this fight with a record of 7-4. Alice Pereira, on the other hand, has a record of 5-1. This is a good old-fashioned pick'em. Hailey Cowan sitting as the -110 pick'em, and Alice Pereira sitting as the -110 pick'em as well. No favorites and no underdogs in this fight, boys. The bookies have no idea what's going to happen. I have some of an idea, and I'm going to tell you now. This is an ugly one, boys. A very, very ugly fight. We got two of the lowest level fighters in the division. And look, boys, I don't say that to be disrespectful. I'm never disrespectful on purpose to these fighters, but I'm breaking down fighters. I'm being an analyst. I'm got my analyst cap on as well as my sports bettor cap on. They're two different things. Very, very different things. But I have to be brutal in both. In my analyst cap, I have to be brutal, but I can be a little bit more, soft. But with my sports betting cap, I have to be extremely brutal, man. I'm putting a lot of money on these fighters. I stake big, big money. And if I'm staking so much money, I don't really care about feelings. I need to be super brutal. And the honest truth is these guys are the lowest level in their respective divisions. They are very low level for their weight class, for their division in the UFC. Regional scene, they're gonna smash a lot of girls. UFC is different. The good thing for both of them, they're facing off against each other, so it's basically a regional scene type fight in the UFC. Now, Alice Pereira is a very young girl. In fact, she may be the youngest fighter in the entire UFC. I think she is. She's 20 years of age. And she only just turned 23 months ago in December. She was 19 years of age when she fought Montserrat Rendon. I don't really know why she got signed so early to the UFC, but it is what it is. She came in. She put on a decent performance for a 19-year-old. It's not great. You couldn't beat someone like Montserrat Rendon because, again, I think Rendon's one of the lowest in the weight class, but I do feel like, she had some debut jitters. She's 19 years old making her UFC debut. I mean, you would expect her to be a bit nervous. 19-year-old girl making your UFC debut. And I think it showed in the fight. I feel like in this fight, she'll have a better performance. Hailey Cowan is coming in with a wrestling, top control, grappling advantage here. If she takes Pereira down once or twice, she could win the entire fight based off that. On the feet, I give Pereira the upside. I feel like, I don't want to say she's tougher even, but I feel like she could be more aggressive. She definitely swings harder. So if she lands on Cowan, she could do damage. She definitely should win the striking via the damage and optics upside. She should be the one hurting Cowan, not the other way round. She's very tall, very big, very physical for the weight class, even though she's only 20 years old. I'd be interested to see how she is at 25, 26, 27. But at 20 years old, it's always a tough ask. I'm going to go with Alice Pereira here. Not confidently. I do think she could be a good fighter. I think Cowan's pretty low level, but I thought Rendon was maybe even lower level, and she didn't win that fight. It was a very close fight, though. But yeah, I feel like this is going to be another close fight, Pereira could get taken down 2-3 times and look plus 1,000. She really could. I don't know what she has off her back. On the other hand, if it stays on the feet, Pereira could just land big shots and Cowan could look kind of scared and not know what to do. Ugly fight. Pass for me. Alice Pereira via decision is my prediction. Next up, we have Azamat Bekoev taking on Tresean Gore. Tresean Gore most likely fighting for his UFC contract here. He does not want to lose this one. Azamat Bekoev coming into this fight with a record of 20 wins, 4 losses. Tresean Gore, very unshiny record, 5 wins, 4 losses. If he wins this fight, he'll be 5-5 in professional MMA and most likely get cut from the UFC. Yeah, very weird fight here. Very weird book in the UFC. I guess wants to get Bekoev back on the win track because he was somewhat of a hyped fighter going into that last fight against Yusri Belgari, a fight where I did bet on him, which ended up being one of the worst bets of 2025. So hold my hands up on that one, boys. Sometimes you get smoked. Sometimes you smoke them. We got smoked on that one. He just kind of got dominated. He couldn't get the takedowns. Well, he did get multiple takedowns, but he couldn't get any control time, which I was quite surprised at. In this fight, I think he's going to have a much easier task getting takedowns and control time just because Yusri Belgari has adapted his whole game like Alex Pereira and Israel Adesanya at stopping takedowns, being a lifelong kickboxer. And obviously, he's a much better striker than someone like Tresean Gore. Bekoev can actually even land on Gore here, honestly. I feel like he's going to come in with a wrestling game plan, though, because Gore hits very hard. And even in some of his defeats, he hasn't looked that bad. Like in the Tulio fight, I don't think he looked that bad. He got battered, he got beat up, he got stopped. But he was just in over his head there. Skill for skill, he was just completely outmatched. I don't think he looked terrible in that fight. If Tresean Gore loses this fight, as I mentioned, he's 5-5. It's not good. I looked at his Instagram as I was doing some research for this fight, and he made a whole post about 3 months ago saying he's pissed off right now. I'm being slept on. I'm being talked down on. And he said, the truth is for my last couple fights, I was undisciplined. Now he's cut everything out and he's finished practice at almost 205, which is the lightest he's been outside of camp in 3 years. I mean, the guy's had 6 fights in the UFC and he's saying he's been undisciplined. Like, that's not good, you know. It's not a good sign that he's been undisciplined for that many fights. It's also not a good sign, you know, coming in overweight in his last fight and getting thoroughly outstruck by Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ace Rodolfo Vieira. It's not a good sign getting knocked out in round 1 by Cody Brundage. I don't think Tresean Gore will look as bad as his odds say in this fight, just because he's not easy to grapple. He's strong. He's powerful. He's probably the same level of striker as Bekov. Like, there's no Bekov. There's no like massive advantage there. And he's got the damage upside and the power upside. So I don't think it's like a complete whitewash, but Tresean Gore has shown himself not to be at this level in the UFC. So there's no way I can pick him. I have to pick against him here. Bekhoev, after his loss against Yusri Belgari, went to the Mountings and trained with the Russian freestyle wrestling team. So I think he really wants to get back on track. And I'm going to have to pick Bekhoev here. I don't know whether he's going to finish him or win via decision. I'll pick via decision, but it's a tough one to call based on the odds. And Tresean Gore's just a weird fighter. You know, he's just a weird fighter. Like, I wouldn't have thought Rodolfo Vieira would decision him on the feet for the most part. Like, that's quite shocking to me. I wouldn't have thought Brundage would knock him out in round 1. I wouldn't have thought he would have guillotined Josh Fremd, to be honest. So, yeah, he's a weird fighter. Bit of a wild card in terms of how he's going to lose or how he's going to win or the method. You know, the methods are quite weird. The way he's lost, the methods he's lost by and won by are quite strange to me, in my opinion. But yeah, enough rambling, boys. Azamat Bekhoev via decision is my official prediction. Next up, we have more women's MMA on tap. Daiane Barbosa taking on Melissa Gatto. Daiane Barbosa coming into this fight, 8 wins, 4 losses. Melissa Gatto, 9 wins, 2 losses, 2 draws. Interesting record here. This is also another battle of the Brazilian woman like we have earlier in the card, or later in the card, with Virna and Ricci. So they got Barbosa, a -140 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Melissa Gatto at +120. So another closely lined fight there, boys. Yeah, boys, for this one, big disclaimer, I have not done any tape study. So I'm going to tell you when I have done tape study and when I haven't done tape study. I've just been super busy this week. It's been tough. Obviously, I record these videos. I think it's 11 days out. So I record these videos on a Wednesday, which is Tuesday for America. And they don't go out until Saturday. And that's 1 week before the fights, right? So basically 1 week and a half before the fights, I record these videos, trying to work it out in my head. So, you know, sometimes I haven't done the full tape study. I try to, because I want to get early videos out for you guys. But yeah, unfortunately, this week I did not tape study this fight. I can give you my thoughts off the top of my head because I know these fighters, obviously. Yeah, I feel like it's a close fight. You know, I feel like it's closely lined for a reason. Melissa Gatto, in my opinion, has the striking upside. I think she's a better striker. I think she's got better kicks. I think, look, I don't want to say I don't think she has better boxing, but I think she probably has better kicks. Again, this is where I really need to tape study. But from memory, Barbosa's probably got the boxing upside and Melissa Gatto has the kicking upside. Melissa Gatto has very solid kicks and teeps to the stomach, which could be good because Barbosa does get tired. So that's an angle that she can attack. Barbosa gets tired in every fight as well. So I feel like Melissa Gatto has a cardio advantage here. Gatto's been off for 2 years, which is not a good sign at all. Barbosa's been in there competing with the best of them. So yeah, I don't think that's a good sign. I think Barbosa won her fight against Karine Silva. She wasn't awarded the win there. So that shows you what level she can fight at. Karine Silva is a very good fighter. So it's a close fight all round, boys, you know. I can't give a prediction if I've not taped it. I will, however, give a prediction because everyone always wants me to give predictions. So I'll say Melissa Gatto. She's the underdog. I lean to the underdog in a fight like this, which I think is very close. But like I said, boys, I need to tape some specifics, you know. I need to get up to date on how Melissa Gatto's boxing is because I don't really remember it. You know, I know Daiane Barbosa's got good boxing. I know Melissa Gatto's got solid kicks. I know she's got multiple kicks to the body finishes, which is very, you know, unusual in women's MMA and in MMA in general. But I want to see her boxing more. I also want to see how the grappling dynamic will play out. In my head, Gatto's a good grappler, but Barbosa is very willing and a good grappler as well, although she makes mistakes. So yeah, just a bunch of things I want to see on tape. But ultimately, right now, I'm going to pick Melissa Gatto via decision as the underdog. So that's it, boys. Thank you for watching the show. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to see these videos anymore. If you don't, hit the thumbs down button if there is one. I think there is. And unsubscribe from the channel and you won't see me again. Outside of that, boys, hopefully you cash. Peace out.